Second day of 4. 2 races were completed yesterday, and we saw all kinds of great action, Ken and Nathan, on the course. There are your standings right now with their respective helmsmen. Peter Burling out in front with 16 points. The French sliding into second place, and then we have a bit of a logjam between New Zealand, Sweden, United States, and Portugal. So the standings after one day look like this. It is going to be very interesting. Remember, the last race, the 8th race, is weighted a little bit heavier. But right now, it is Emirates Team New Zealand, Ken, out in front with the French sitting in second. Let's take a moment and meet some of our top teams.
Thanks, Todd. Peter Burling and his Kiwi squad came out of the blocks fast, and it could have been even better. Not recognizing a boundary penalty cost them 2 spots on the last run and a larger lead going into day 2.
Yeah, we're obviously really happy with the first day. I mean, you can't win a regatta on the first day, but you can lose it, and we're certainly happy to get 2 solid scores on the board. We're really happy with how the boys put the boat around the course and got through some pretty tricky manoeuvres and a lot of hard work, and we're really happy with the speed as well. Obviously, everyone else is all still close as and all to play for, but yeah, it was a really good entry to the regatta.
Next World Energy were the sleepers on the course on day 1. Skipper Arsha Panwa didn't have the best starts, but slowly climbed back through each fleet race to a steady 3-4 finish.
So yesterday we saw that we are able to do good races. We are quite confident in our capacity to do good races. We saw that start is very important, but other competitors see what we can do. We will continue like this, stay focused, be strong, and maybe try to do good start today.
Full Metal Jacket Racing struggled off the line in race 1, but followed it up with a terrific start in race 2 to lead around the course and a solid win. Look for this Kiwi team to keep proving that there's no love lost between the 2 New Zealand squads.
Yeah, I think yesterday we were a little bit inconsistent with a good result and a not so good result, so today we need to just fight for those top 4 positions to try and push away from the other boats and maybe close in on the leaders. And yeah, maybe a little bit lighter out there today, but yeah, we feel we're pretty confident in all breezes, and we just go out there and have fun and push as hard as we can.
The American Youth Sailing Force nailed race number 1 yesterday, stretching around the track to a dominant win. But race 2 saw a bad Code Zero set start a series of events that dropped them to a disappointing 7th.
It was really great to get a win that first race. Felt really great for our team. It was a great way to start the regatta, and I think it's going to be a really good thing for us in the next coming days, confidence-wise. So we're feeling really great. We didn't have the best second race, but we're really happy with our boat speed and the way we're sailing around the race course right now. So we're going to continue to have fun and sail hard.
I'm Jason Waterhouse. I'm the skipper of Objective Australia. We have one common goal, one objective, obviously to win the Youth America's Cup, but also it's a company name of our founder and sponsor, Objective, which is based in Sydney, Australia, which is a large software company. Our crew is a mix of diverse sailors. We have mostly dinghy sailors who are going for the Olympic spot for Rio 2016. And then we have also a mix of yacht sailors who Transpac winners, Sydney Hobart winners, go on. We have quite a resume behind the whole team, and the goal is to gel us together here in San Francisco and obviously come out together on top. The crew, we all have diverse skills. A lot of us come from different corners of our country, which is quite big. A lot of skiff sailors who, it's quite similar to San Francisco on Sydney Harbour, quite puffy and windy. And then we have a lot of yacht sailors who bring the yachting side and the big load side, who obviously Sydney to Hobart's, around Australia records. So the boys all bring different diverse skills, and obviously they're all quite physical and big to get muscle this boat around the course. This event is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for ourselves, and it's I suppose, a pathway to, and it's one of the only pathways these days to get into the America's Cup. It's quite a hard shell to crack to get into this, this sort of scene. So quite an honour to represent our country.
Conditions are clean for racing today. Day number 2 of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup. 2 races a day till we get to Wednesday, and the last race counts extra on points. As we take a look at the conditions, Ken, it looks like things will hold up and we should be able to get both races in.
Shouldn't be a problem getting both races in today, Todd. Definitely a lighter air day, though. We might see the results mix up a little bit. Supposedly the Portuguese are the boat to look for today, as in all the practice racing, they've been really good in the light stuff.
So with light breeze, we take a look at the course that will be featured here today. It's the same one we had yesterday, Ken. It's pretty quick, especially off the start.
Well, this is the same course as we saw in the America's Cup World Series. A 7-leg course with blast reaches off the start and the finish, sandwiching 2.5 laps up and down the San Francisco waterfront. Huge crowds on this Labor Day holiday will be a major highlight for these 10 youth teams.
And at Mark 6, they make the turn towards the finish line. So we have got 10 boats on the water representing 8 different countries. Nathan Outridge, you have sailed both the AC-45s and the AC-72s. With a light wind day like today, how do these 45s handle?
Yeah, they're going to be quite nice to sail today. These guys are going to be a little bit more controlled than yesterday, and I expect the racing to be pretty tight. And as always, this start's going to be very critical going into today's racing.
Get a look at some of the onboards that we'll be bringing you throughout the day. There is the team of New Zealand, the leaders right now of Emirates Team New Zealand, with Peter Burling there on the left side of your screen. And they had a pretty consistent day yesterday. They were in the running on both races. And a team that did not do as well, Ken, that would be the Australians. Now, quickly, let's go through. They have been given a little bit of redress from race number 1, did the Aussies, because of the problem they had.
Yeah, they did. Halyard broke on the, as we kind of surmised at the time, a halyard broke on their code 0 in the first race. The jury determined that it wasn't their fault, that it was given to them by the race authorities. Therefore, they got what's called redress, or average points, for the next 5 races.
Play it on the hook for him if you want.
Yeah, let's go, Max pace.
So this is on board with the French squad as they get ready to make their way towards the line. Minute 20 to go. This is race number 3 of 8. And Nathan, it looks like everyone is finding the sweet spot being a little bit up high.
Yeah, it looks like they're all aiming towards the windward end of the line. We saw that work really well in the first race yesterday. And there's a little bit of a flood out there at the moment, so you obviously don't want to be too low, otherwise you're something a really tight angle to Mark 1.
And Nathan, light air versus heavy air starts, completely different mindset here for these guys?
Yeah, for sure. In the lighter air, you're more than happy to get in there a little bit early. You can see a lot of the guys are trying to fight to that front row, because as soon as you get in bad air in the back row, it's just not enough wind to accelerate these boats. So definitely more tricky to start in the lighter wind.
10 seconds from the line.
Todd, we see the Swedes doing exactly what they did in race 1 and 2, all the way up at the weather end. They certainly have found a sweet spot. They like it up there.
Yeah, they can't go taking down the load board right now.
This looks like Portugal that is making a dash at the last second down towards the bottom of the entry box.
And a lot of times just getting clear air in these starts is what it's all about. You increase your averages dramatically. There's such a ball up at that weather end. I really actually like what the Portuguese are doing here, Nathan.
Portugal and Germany, and you see Germany doing a slingshot here, and it'll be interesting if they get their time on distance right, they could have a nice start here.
So here we go. Race number 3 of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup is underway.
Wow, New Zealand and France both with penalties over early. They're going to have to slow down and let the group go by, as with the Swiss. Big mistake by the Kiwis, who are leading the regatta.
That's interesting. You know, Pete Burling obviously got parked up on the line there. It'll be really interesting to see how quickly he can come back into this race.
So penalties across the board. New Zealand 1, Switzerland, Australia, and France all get hit. And it looks like it's going to go put the Portuguese, the Swedes, and USA 1, the winners of race number 1 yesterday, in great position.
The Portuguese did a really nice job at that start. They just sought clear air. It's that simple. And here they are. They're going to be leading going into Mark 1.
9 and 3. Hold. 2. 1. Deploy. Go.
So at mark number 1, the Portuguese get the right of way. They are first to the circle. The Americans on the outside, and now here's where the strategy comes into play.
See, the Germans love it. I mean, this is aggressive. This is really good aggressive sailing here at this mark. The Australians are doing exactly what they have to do. They've got to get out into less disturbed air, doing what's called the jibe set at this mark.
Holding. Driving now.
Driving in 3.
So the Germans file a protest. It's quickly waved off.
Here, guys. Wait, hold, Mike. Hold
Looks like the Aussie team here, only boat to jibe at that mark and are making really good gains across the fleet there. You know, as you were saying, Ken, the whole goal of these boats is to go fast and stay away from the other boats, and that's exactly what they're doing now.
So at this point, it looks like the Portuguese are in first.
Left-hand turn here, just so we have rights coming in.
Yeah, copy.
USA 1 currently sitting in second place. And we go on board with the American Youth Sailing Force. Michael Meninger there on the left side of your screen is the helmsman.
Pressure's better inside.
You see over his left shoulder the Australians all the way on the outside on the left-hand side of the race course going downwind. This will be interesting. The Australians should certainly gain a few places just by getting out of sync with the rest of the group. But those two first boats, the Portuguese and USA 1, are going to have a nice little lead, it looks like, coming into this mark.
I'm liking the inside.
You like a full deploy?
Yeah, I am.
So tactics already being talked about for gate number 2. There you see Australia. They are going way down to the outside of the course as they hit the ley line, and here comes their jibe.
Australians came very close to that. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the ley line. That's not the boundary.
It's going to be tighter at the bottom mark. You know, you can see the lead boats generally gap away from most of the fleet, but it's the race between third and sort of fifth that really gets tight down at this bottom mark.
Here's a question for you, Nathan. You sailed these AC-45s. Are the Americans going to determine which way they go depending on what Portugal does, or do they already know exactly what they're going to do regardless?
I think they'll have their own plan, but what they do really does, you know, determine what Portugal do. They don't want to follow them around the mark as always.
So at mark number 2, it is Portugal still out in front. USA 1 sits in second place, and here comes the Swiss in third. Portugal, USA 1, and Switzerland, the first ones to gate number 2.
And this is where the log jam starts here. You see boats getting trapped in between other boats. The last thing you do is end up in the middle of this gate. You really want to be on the insides every time around these bottom marks.
Well, the Aussies there on the inside line, really pushing New Zealand 1 full metal jacket to the outside and causing them to really slow down as well.
You know, Todd, I think these guys all know who the regatta favorites are. If all of a sudden you're the Australians and you see NZL1 right behind you, you're not going to do them any favors. Everybody kind of has in the back of their mind that Peter Burling, just based on his experience in these boats, is clearly the boat to beat. So just look for people not to give him a lot of breaks out on the race course if they get behind like this.
New Zealand 1 and New Zealand 2 not having the best first 2 legs of this third race of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup. Remember, New Zealand 2, NZL Sailing with Team Emirates Team New Zealand, they are the current leaders on point. And there's Portugal off the right-hand side. Michael Meninger, the helmsman for USA 1 in second.
Yeah, sorry, Todd. Portugal had a great rounding there and forced the Americans to take the what's called the low road. They had to try to keep their air clear and go below them. It didn't work out, and it's probably been a nice gain for Portugal, and it might kind of get the Americans back into the pack a little bit.
So the Americans decide to tack early, possibly trying to get some clean air out on course and get out of sequence. All right, Nathan, if you're the Portuguese and you're out in front like this, what are you thinking? What are you going to try to do?
You just be keeping your eye on the breeze up the course. They've got a nice little lead at the moment, and their whole goal is just to stay between the fleet and the top mark. And we see them there just tacking over onto port and just keeping a loose cover on the American team. From here, they've just got to make sure they don't make any mistakes around the race course.
Todd, it's a fairly neutral current going upwind here today. Fairly neutral current, and it's on the change to start going out. So as the day goes on, we'll likely see the left side of the race course prove to be a little bit more favored. Even now, the USA 1 coming across in the middle of the track, they actually gained on the Swiss, and that was with kind of a crummy maneuver. So it looks like the left side of the race course might have a little bit of a favor to it right now.
So it's the Portuguese out in front currently, and the Americans close behind, less than probably 50 meters.
As soon as he's ready.
Tacking in 3, 2, 1, tacking.
4.5 still.
Yeah.
You can see they're definitely using the left-hand side of this track a lot. You know, as you're saying, Ken, the current will be better in there at the moment. And what's interesting is with this racing compared to the 72 racing, the boundaries are going all the way to the shore. Normally on the 72s, this would be out of bounds for us. So yeah, that's where you get your big gains. If you can get right into the shore, there's already starting to get the ebb up the shore, and that makes a big difference upwind.
So this is kind of bad luck for the Americans here right now, getting tacked on by the Portuguese. Again, it's kind of forcing them back into the fray a little bit. Like Nathan kept saying yesterday, you have to stay away from other boats if you possibly can, because you get tied up with somebody, you get in your own little race, before you know it, the whole pack has either caught you or passed you.
There you see the yellow light flashing, gentlemen. What is that telling the helmsman, Michael Menninger?
I think that means get that Portuguese boat off of our disturbed air right now.
Tacking in 3, 2, 1, tacking.
They ended up going early before they got to the boundary, because they need to somehow get out of sequence with the Portuguese right now, or they're going to be right back in the fray.
Pressure in a high lane here.
So back in 8th place, towards the back of the pack here on leg number 3. This is onboard France.
Todd, these guys were back in the pack in both races yesterday, but I'm not sure they were ever back this far. Nathan, this is hard. In this lighter breeze, this is hard to try to get through 7 or 8 boats, a lot of disturbed air, boats that don't maneuver very well.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, once you're behind that 5th position, trying to get your lanes back through the fleet is really hard. And you've got all the disturbed wind of all the boats ahead of you. Plus you have the starboard tackers and port tackers, you know, having their own little battles at the back of the race. So you can see here Pete Burling ducking behind the French team, trying to find his way back into the race as well.
Surprised to see our current points leader, Peter Burling, and NZL sailing team with Emirates Team New Zealand in the very back. And New Zealand won, really having their problems. Will Tiller, the skipper there, they are in dead last right now, 100 meters behind 9th place in Switzerland.
I believe that was 3-2-1 in Swedish.
Very good.
How's that?
Charlie Ekberg calling it out. They are currently sitting in 3rd place. They decide now's the time to tack.
Easy free nu. Bra, kom igen.
Again, the Americans are not in a great spot here, because they'd love just to go to ley line, but they're going to almost have to wait for the Portuguese to tack first, because they don't want to be sitting in disturbed air all the way into the top mark.
150.
Think they can get to the ley line here, Nathan?
It's going to be pretty tight. If they can get to the ley line and lay in, at least they're coming to the top mark on starboard. But I'm pretty sure whenever they tack here, the Portuguese are going to tack right on their face and give them disturbed air all the way to the mark.
Tacking angles are terrible in these boats in this lighter breeze. Is it over 100 degrees?
Yeah, it'll be about 100 degrees or so once you're sort of in the 10-knot wind range, which it's looking like that on the course at the moment. And as you can see there, Portugal tacking straight on them, and instantly you hear the boys on board say high mode. So, you know, they're identifying exactly what they need to do based on the other boats.
Great match racing going on here in fleet race number 3. We are scheduled for 8 races over the course of 4 days. This is just day number 2 of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup.
So on the lower right part of our screen, Todd, it's the Americans struggling to keep their air clean over the top of the Portuguese. And again, that's allowing the pack to sneak up behind them again.
So at gate number 3, it is Portugal who has maintained the lead from the start. The first ones to gate 3, the Americans close behind, and then a full flotilla coming in from the shore side, including the Swiss, the Swedes, New Zealand 1, and Germany.
Stand by. I'll get this thing out.
Here's a look on board USA 1 as they go around gate number 3. Nathan, do you split the course at this point once you get out of this traffic, or do you just stay with the Portuguese?
I think here they're going to follow the Portuguese, get the boat going fast, and look for their moment to get offshore. They know that the breeze is probably a little stronger on shore, but they need to decide when they really want to head offshore, because looking at this top mark here, the rest of the fleet's going the other way. So you'd be a little nervous getting this split happening at the moment. looking like some action there from the German team, almost a capsize during the barrelway. Really, really big heel throughout that manoeuvre.
Wow, the Germans cut across. They're a little loose right now. The Germans were around that mark. Portuguese sailing well, very well. They tacked on the Americans when they should have tacked on the Americans. They let them breathe a little bit when they should have let them breathe. They had a good second beat.
The Aussies got themselves into a bit of a scrum there at mark number 3.
Nice. One.
And this is what happens all the time when you get to the back of the pack. You can get caught up with other boats so easily. The Australians here and the Kiwis really having a bit of a battle. And the longer they battle, the more the leaders are going to sail away from them.
And you think that's a battle actually for position at that stage, or is it a little bit of frustration at the same time?
I'm sure they're both pretty frustrated. The Aussies had a tough day yesterday, and they were doing really well around the bottom mark and just seemed to be out of phase on that beat there. And Pete Burling would be just wishing, you know, that they would just stop fighting and so he could get back up into the fleet again.
Wait, everyone wait up, Ian. Hold on. Wait up. We're gonna set up, sorry. Copy.
Looks like a tight cross here coming up.
No. Anchor. Not crossing, we're jibing. Dude. Yeah, good pressure inside. Stand by, jibe. Jibing in 3, 2, 1, jibing. Hold furl.
Portuguese have done exactly the right thing. They forced USA 1 back into the pack. This is going to make the rest of their race much easier and really make it tough on the Americans. Now they're going to have to start really looking over their shoulder at the Swiss if they haven't lost them already.
So the Swiss take second place away from USA 1. Portugal continues to motor away. Now their lead over 100 meters over second place Switzerland and almost 200 meters over the Americans, who were just seconds behind them at mark number 3. You hear Michael Menninger talking to his crew saying we're doing just too many maneuvers. And Nathan Outridge, you've been on the AC-45s, you know the game. It's fewer maneuvers, you're going to go faster.
Exactly. These boats go really fast when they're in a straight line, but as soon as you jibe in these conditions, they slow down a lot. And you can see Portugal here really just splitting away from the fleet. They're obviously happy with the pressure they have. Maybe they think they can get to ley line and just do one more jibe before the bottom mark. And, you know, if that's the case, then they're going to have a nice lead around this bottom mark.
Clean air, plenty of real estate to deal with. The Portuguese now have their lead out to about 125 meters over Switzerland, who have taken over second place. Here comes the jibe from the Portuguese.
I was told before today's racing, Todd, by the guys that have been coaching all these kids for the past several weeks, that the Portuguese were clearly the boat to look for in this lighter breeze, and sure enough, it's holding true to form. But their start was terrific. I mean, it was all just set up by realizing there was going to be a tight group at that weather mark, figuring out a way to clear air and getting there. Really well done.
Now, why would one boat or one crew be better in lighter air? Are they just more comfortable with the lighter air and the slower speed?
Oh, for sure. You talk to any sailor on Earth, and they're going to say, I like X breeze or Y breeze. And these guys clearly like light stuff.
Mark number 4, it's Portugal out in front. They have led the entire race, this race number 3 of 8, and they will once again do what they did at mark number 2 and head closer to shore, but this time they have a sizable lead over the rest of the fleet. Switzerland coming into second, USA 1 has dropped to third, and New Zealand 1, that is Full Metal Jacket Racing, has worked their way up from 8th place now into 4th.
Looks like a bit of a split happening here at the bottom mark between the Swiss and USA. USA heading back into the shore again, which seems to be the favoured way to go. So
that was a good mark rounding by them. They got, unlike what we saw yesterday with the Swedes, who are also way back in the pack, these guys figured out a way to get that code 0 out for just the last few seconds of the run to get them to the mark and still get it up furled without any problems.
Exactly. And this one here might be interesting to see how that comes out at the top mark. They've just pushed it a little bit too far with the furl, and you can see it's still flapping going upwind. They're going to have a late hoist when they get to the top mark next time.
How about New Zealand 2? Emirates Team New Zealand squad with Peter Burling. They were in dead last, and here they are now making a push for a top 5 finish.
Very impressive downwind there. They obviously found a couple of nice puffs and got back through this pack. And you know, they'll be turning around going, thank God we're out of this pack that's now coming into the bottom mark here.
Shows the depth of this fleet by the top 3 in this regatta are in the bottom half of this fleet. You know, so that means we got something good to talk about, boys, for the next couple days. You know, this is good action.
Well, we talked about this on day number 1. It doesn't mean you have to go out and win every race, but if you are consistent, Ken and Nathan, you finish in the top 3 or 4 every race, you're probably going to find yourself at the very end of this regatta on top of the whole field.
What do you think about where the Portuguese tack there, Ken?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because they kind of stuck with their original philosophy. They've done 2 extra tacks here just to go tack on the second place boat, which is the Swiss. Kind of giving the Americans a little bit of breathing space, maybe a little those little left-hand puffs that come off the shore. So now the Portuguese are going straight after the Swiss. Maybe the Americans can benefit.
So it's Portugal 1, Switzerland 2, and the USA now closing the gap on Switzerland for second place, almost even with them at that marker, but New Zealand 1 maybe making the greatest moves, and at the bottom of your screen, New Zealand 2. Emirates Team New Zealand, the overall leaders after day 1 of racing.
The Portuguese aren't sailing confidently right now. They've done more tacks than anybody on this leg so far. They're allowing themselves to kind of move back to the pack a little bit. They're sailing very defensive.
Yeah, they are. I guess they realize they had a pretty big lead around the bottom mark, and they're going to sacrifice a bit of that just to stay in front. But they just got to be careful. If they keep this up the high up the beat, they're going to have 2 boats right on their stern around the top mark.
For sure, the people benefiting the most, Todd, are the Kiwis right now. Will Tiller and NZL1. They're just nice and patient. They're out of sequence with the rest of the group. They have clear air. They're letting those front 3 guys just beat on each other, get back closer, and they've done a nice job stretching away from the pack behind them.
And the Americans have now moved back into second place as Switzerland makes a tack, and they'll try to head straight for the next gate. This is leg 5 of 7, race number 1 on the day. As you look at New Zealand 1, that's Full Metal Jacket Racing and Will Tiller, the skipper.
High derp, high derp. Go on here.
Call for a high dip, Nathan. Want to explain to the troops what that is?
So they've got a tight cross coming here with Switzerland, and I guess they realize they're not going to cross. So rather than going lower and building speed to do the dip, I heard them say there that their runner's on, the leeward runner is on, so I can't ease the wing, means I've got to luff up, slow the boat down and go behind. And it looks like they've got that slightly wrong, but always safer to do that than and get a penalty.
Still, though, the Kiwis are out of sequence. The front 3 boats are all now on starboard tack, just beating on each other. Look for these guys to continue to gain. This is still a big benefit for the Kiwis right now, just being out of sorts with the front 3 boats. You see that tide line, Todd, right below the Kiwi boat at the bottom of the screen. They'll be wanting to tack soon before they get over the other side of that tide line.
Now, is that the responsibility, Nathan, of the skipper or the tactician to see that tide line and call it out?
It's generally the tactician's job. You know, the helmsman and the wing trim are trying to make the boat go fast the whole time. So they're not really looking at the tide lines or the wind so much. The tactician up the front, he's just hiking out, and he's really looking for, you know, paving the way around the course. And, you know, you could say the guys at the back are in charge of the speed, and the guys at the front are in charge of where we're going.
Nathan, what do they have for instrumentation on the boat? Are they just winging it for the most part, or do they have any instruments at all?
It's a pretty basic instrumentation. They've got like the Velocitech GPSs, so they know their speed over the ground and they know their heading, or a tactical compass, but very, very basic compared to what we have on the 72s.
So Portugal is your leader here on leg 5 of 7. New Zealand 1 making some great moves on that last leg, and the Americans have now dropped behind the Swiss into 3rd place.
All these boats beating on each other. Now the Portuguese, hopefully, the Portuguese got to be thinking right now, we got to just stay away. This pack of 3 behind us are mauling each other at this stage. Let's just get out of Dodge and go win this race.
And the Americans kind of getting pinned down towards the shore by the Swiss. Meanwhile, New Zealand defines it's a good time to tack away from this mess.
The Kiwis are doing a great job of getting back into the race there, and then Switzerland decided, all right, it's time to tackle you boys, you've caught up too much. And anyway, they're still going to have a nice, long tack here on port, and they're going to enter the top mark on starboard, so be really close coming to the top mark. It just depends on what pressure's going to come off that left-hand shore as to how those two boats are going to go over there.
Interesting, the Portuguese just tacked what looks to be well below just a really short ley line here. I'm very surprised that they just tacked where they tacked. Once we zoom out here, see they were coming right up to the gate, and they decided to do 2 tacks. I'm very surprised at that. I think they have a big enough lead, but still, they easily could have done it in 1.
This is on board with the Kiwi guys here hoisting their code 0, and remember they had an issue when they felt it up at the bottom, so let's hope for their sake that it doesn't flap out and cause any issues, because they've done an awesome job on this beat, up into second looking at it at the moment.
I think we have to. Going.
At gate number 5, again, it is Portugal out in front. They have led this entire race 3 with one more race still to come. But an interesting maneuver as they got close. Will it cost them? The Swiss and the Americans pushing each other towards the shore. And in the meantime, New Zealand won. Full Metal Jacket Racing has inherited 2nd place.
Give the Kiwis full marks here for just getting out of sequence the whole way around, the whole way up this beat. Now remember, they had a code 0 problem at that leeward mark. Let's see if it, it's already unraveling, Nathan, up top.
Yeah, looks like bad news for those boys, but let's see how they go with managing it here.
Americans have a problem as well.
This is a problem for USA 1.
Here's the Kiwis. They had that flapping. Let's see if they do what Nathan suggested yesterday and just throw it into a jibe quickly to get it unfurled.
You can see looking up at this camera angle how twisted it is and how the top of it's like a bubble, but the bottom's twisted. So here they go. It looks like they're jibing, and fingers crossed for these boys that it's going to come out.
It's so frustrating. That hourglass, it just never seems like it was to come out.
So Ken, speaking from as the president of North Sales, what is technically going on with that code 0?
It's the leeward mark rounding is the problem. There has to be a bit of tension kept on that code 0 sheet as it furls up to get it nice tight roll. If you don't get a tight roll, you're asking for problems at the top of the track.
And it looks like a lot of teams are having issues with this at the moment. I saw the American team come around. They'd been fighting with it for a bit. And I just saw Pete Burling come around again, and he had an issue with his one. So the teams are pushing these boats harder. I guess they're getting more confident with the boats. And as time goes on, they're not giving their crew enough time to do the maneuvers properly.
Exactly.
One team that has not had any problems really this entire race number 3 is the Portuguese squad. They have led from the outset. They got the whole shot, and Bernardo Freitas, the helmsman, Antonio Melo, the wing trimmer, the skipper, have done a great job. No issues with the code 0. So as Portugal gets to mark number 6 first, way ahead of everyone else, pushing their lead almost to 200 meters over Switzerland, with USA 1 sitting in 3rd. The Portuguese will make the turn and head to the finish line.
Funny, they've sailed to... I don't think I've ever witnessed, either in this racing or in the America's Cup World Series events, more maneuvers on a beat, more tacks on a beat. These guys were pounding on everybody behind them. I give them full credit. I mean, obviously it's working, but this is just an aggressive race all the way around.
We can have ourselves a nice little drag race at mark number 6 as Switzerland throws in 1 extra jibe, and the Americans should be coming into the picture momentarily in 3rd place. And they look like they are on a perfect line for this gate, so we'll keep an eye on that, the battle for 2nd and 3rd. But it is Portugal who has had all the right moves here on day number 2 and race number 3 of 8. The Portuguese just steaming home, and they will get the win. So after 3 races, we've had 3 different winners, but today in race number 1, it's Portugal that gets the victory.
The Roth Qashqai racing team, these guys are going to be really happy. They didn't have a great day yesterday. What a great way to start day 2.
And the rest of the fleet now coming home. The Americans sitting in third, with Switzerland sitting in second. And bad luck for New Zealand 1, Full Metal Jacket Racing. They had gone into second place, and then a bad code 0 furling caused them serious problems to drop from second now back to fourth. So Switzerland holds on for second place, a great race for them. And USA 1 and Michael Menager's American Youth Sailing Force, they will grab third.
Ready, John? Yeah, Jamie here.
All about consistency at this stage. We see how tightly matched this whole group is. Back of the pack are the Swedes, who are second going into today, or sorry, tied for third. Back of the pack are the French, who were in second place. Amazing.
Something stopped at one point.
Great save for New Zealand 1 as they come across in fourth place. So Full Metal Jacket having their issues, but they do not panic and they get it all taken care of. Consistent with a fourth. The Germans come through with a strong finish, top 5. And Australia, after the problems they had yesterday with their boat, gentlemen, it's good to see them. They round out the top 6.
Top way. There you go.
Better, but I don't think the Australians are happy yet, Nathan.
No, for sure. Like they rounded the bottom mark higher, placed in 6th position, and had a really bad second beat. And, you know, they just kept chipping away. The thing with this racing is you can feel like you've had a really good race and finish 6th, or you can feel like you had a really bad race and still finish 6th.
New Zealand 2, who were the leaders after day number 1, they come in with a disappointing 7th place finish. And the French, who were penalized on that last leg, they will come in 8th place. Sweden holds on for 9, and now we are just waiting for USA 2 to come through. And unfortunately for them, another disappointing day as they come across the line. They will be in 10th, dead last here on race number 3.
Yeah, Charlie's got to do a better job at judging this time and distance off the starting line. As we talked about yesterday, it's such a different feel on the starting line from anything that we've ever done. He's a laser sailor, done a lot of collegiate sailing. Obvious huge amount of success on that boat, but they're struggling to get off the line right now.
So race number 3 of 8 is complete here, and day number 2, and it is the Portuguese who get the victory. So we've had 3 different winners in 3 different races. It has been a fantastic day of racing here at the Red Bull Youth America's Cup. As we take a look at the race results for race number 3, it is the Portuguese with the victory, a 29-second margin over Team Tilt and Switzerland. American Youth Sailing Force, who got the first win of day number 1, they come in 3rd place. New Zealand, race boat number 2, grabs 4th, and then the team that led it all the way yesterday overall was New Zealand Sailing with Emirates. They grab a 7th. So here are the updated standings. Portugal out in front by 1, clear of the Americans, who are currently sitting in 2nd in the overall. And then you have 2 New Zealand boats, Full Metal and Emirates Team New Zealand, rounding out the top 4. Now joined by Antonio Melo of Portugal. Antonio, congratulations. You guys had a great start. How were you guys able to do so well at such a light breeze today?
Today we tried to push a little bit harder on the start. That was our bad point yesterday, and the start was really good. We got the reaching mark on first, and we tried to make the race as simple as possible. Of course, it's very tight and all the boats are very competitive, but we did it well, and it was a very nice race.
Hey, Antonio, this is Ken Reed. Congratulations, by the way. And are you guys more comfortable in the lighter breeze than the bigger breeze, or is this just a matter of just being more aggressive today?
I think it's just a matter of being more aggressive today. We are pretty comfortable with all the ranges of winds. Of course, this is a little bit easier, and but I think the main goal was the start, and the start is very important.
Bernardo, thank you very much for your time. Parabéns and obrigado.
Thank you. Obrigado.
So we'll take a look at the race review. This was race number 3 on day 2. And here it was again, the Portuguese in the middle of the pack, timed it just right. But really the story, Nathan Outridge, wasn't the start by the Portuguese. It was all the penalties that happened right off the start line.
It was exactly. The Portuguese did exactly the best job there, you know, away from the boats. But you see all the penalties flicking up. Not just the OCS penalties, but then the boat-on-boat penalties that came from that later on.
France, Switzerland, New Zealand all penalized at the start line, and that gave Portugal a clean line and clean air to mark number 1. And mark number 1, it was the Portuguese who would get the lead.
1,
Really good set around this mark. Very good unfurl. You have the advantage in between races of getting your furl really tight, so typically you see really good Code Zero unfurls at this mark. All of a sudden it looked like it was going to be a two-boat race, but the Swiss had different thoughts as the race went along. Some very aggressive sailing, a little luff by the Germans. I mean, it's just full on out there. It's just great to see.
This was the action at mark number 3. Once again, Portugal, who led the entire race. And keep your eye on the traffic coming in from the area closest to the shore. Switzerland, Sweden, New Zealand won, and Germany looked like they were all heading for the right spot. But Nathan, Portugal, clean air, no issues with traffic.
Exactly. Again, another nice unfurl there with the Code Zero, and they're just looking back, just trying to maintain their speed and just keep it ahead of the rest of the fleet and control the whole way around those boys.
New Zealand making up big-time ground. At the top of your screen, it was New Zealand 1, Full Metal Jacket Racing. At one point, they climbed themselves back into second place, but the Portuguese, no one, Kenny, could touch them today.
Yeah, they sailed reasonably defensive. A lot of tacks on that leg. It allowed the New Zealanders to sneak by, but up at this mark, the Portuguese sail away. The Kiwis had their bad unfurl with their Code Zero, and it just cost them. It cost them an incredible amount of time. It's really frustrating. These guys all have to work on their leeward mark, or their leeward gate roundings in order to get these furls tighter.
And at the finish line, it was Portugal by more than 20 seconds. They get the win in race number 3 of 8 here at the Red Bull Youth America's Cup.
I'm Charlie Buckingham. I'm the helmsman of USA 45 Racing from Newport Beach, California. Basically, for the guys here, it's like right place at the right time. We're all 19 to 24 at the best time to be that age for this regatta. So we're sailing on one of the most exclusive classes of boats in the world that happens to be really fun and high performance. The 45, you know, there's high risk, high reward. So when things are going well, the boat is sailing fast and really well. And when they go wrong, there's pretty catastrophic results. So you're always kind of on the edge of control. And I've never really sailed a boat that has quite as much consequences as the 45. Having 2 flags on the line, each crew is all-American with the nationality rule. Yeah, both boats are really proud to be representing the USA on home waters. We all love sailing, we all love competing, we have fun together. You know, we're here to do a job and win, but we also don't forget that we're having a good time. Every day we go out in training, I feel like there's a different different crew trying to prove themselves, and everybody has good days, and everybody's super close, and racing the boats really hard, and representing their own country. I think there's a lot of pride that goes into it, and a lot of determination to try and win the regatta.
My name is Philipp Buhl and I'm the skipper and wing trimmer on board of the All-In Racing team for Germany. We are a team of 6 sailors plus 1 spare crew, and we have a lot of supporters around us, but not really a coach. It all started in December last year when we knew about the Red Bull Youth America's Cup, and then we wanted to be there. Then we came here, tried our best at the selection series, and we were surprised that we are performing so good, and then we could even win it. There was that accident here in the Pro America's Cup. Our management decided to pull out of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup, and that was a really bad day for all of us in the team. And about 2 hours later, every one of them said, we need to do this, we need to go there, let's do it alone. And now with no coach with us, doing all on our own, we can learn so much for everything, for life and for the other Olympic campaigns. Big chance for us. The first time I saw these boats, the AC45s, it was just like a wow effect. I couldn't believe it, and I couldn't believe me sitting on the boat. or imagine. And now it's still the same feeling with the even bigger boats, and being that close to the cup, that's very special for sure. Yeah, racing the boats is always fun, but sometimes it's a little bit fear as well, because you're sometimes going really fast, and whenever you feel sure on the boat, I think that's good. It makes you confident and makes you work properly.
Beautiful shot of the Golden Gate Bridge here on a Labor Day weekend in the States. We are just about 3:20 away from race number 2, which is on the day, and that'll take us to race 4, which will be the halfway point of the 8th race as we take a look at the overall standings. Portugal out in front, Bernardo Freitas, 23 points, 1 point clear of Mike Menninger in USA 1, and then the Kiwis close behind at 21 and 20 points, with Switzerland rounding out the top 5. Todd Harris along with Ken Reed and the skipper of Big Blue, Artemis Racing, Nathan Outeridge, joining us here in our commentary booth as we get ready for the next race. And gentlemen, this race will mark the halfway point. Nathan, at this point, how much improvement can you make after 4 races, or are we going to pretty much see consistent sailing after this race?
It looks like, you know, it's very up and down. These guys are, you know, we've had 3 different race winners in 3 different, you know, races. And, you know, I think every team's improving every race as we go along here. It's a question of how well they can keep it going throughout the rest of the week.
All right, Ken, fatigue. These guys are young, I know, 19 to 24, and they've got plenty of energy, but that's a 7-leg race, and now they've got about, what, 10 minutes, and now they got to do it all over again.
Yeah, but I think they're jacked. I don't think fatigue's an issue right now. These guys are so excited. This is all about the start, and obviously you saw some anxious people in that last start jumping the gun for the first time. First time we've seen a boat over early in a long time. And I think we're going to see more of the same. A lot of boats piling up. I kind of like this. Come in late and figure out where the hole is, and just be confident that you're going to be able to get there like the Portuguese did.
We saw the Portuguese and the Germans employ the tactic of what Ken Reed called the slingshot effect, right? Nathan, you've sailed the AC-45s. You know these conditions well, sailing the AC-72s. What would you do if you were skipper on any one of these boats?
I think this moment here, about 1:35, is really critical. You can see all the boats shaping up, trying to find the right position. Once you get to a minute, you're really locked into where you're going to be. And at the moment here, you can see a few stragglers out the back, a few guys starting to get in there early. And I mean, I wouldn't want to get there too early. I want to keep my options open to a minute and then slide into my spot.
Right now, Todd, there is a little more breeze, though. We're up to about a 12-knot average. We were only around a 10-knot average in that first race, so there's a little more breeze. It'll be a little easier to get to the starting line. A minute to go, Nathan. They're all pretty early, except for
the Portuguese.
Yeah, there we go.
So they're going similar strategy to before. They're trying to stay away from the boats, and they're just assessing the situation up there right now. And you'll see them come into the pack pretty soon.
You got to be pretty confident on your time and distance calculations at 44 seconds as far as they are, and then they have to avoid everyone else. But here comes the Portuguese once again as they make their move with 35 seconds to the start.
They were up quite high in the box this time. Last time they were a lot lower in the box. Let's see if they can get down there. 30 seconds to go, though. That whole pack up at the weather end is very close.
20 seconds to go, and Portugal now trying to find that opening. Looks like they're going to tuck behind the Americans. Not enough room there. They're going to keep working down. They may time this out right perfectly yet again.
They might. They pull the trigger right now, and off they go.
So a clean start this time, and the Portuguese are the first ones up to speed. New Zealand 2 with Peter Burling at the helm. Also a fantastic start.
Nice to see all the boys behaving themselves out there in this one, and you know we're going to have a really close race around Mark 1 here.
So missing out on that one is probably New Zealand 1, Germany, and the United States 1. Australia making a nice move. There's mark number 1. This is a 7-leg race, and right now the Portuguese have the overall lead after 3 races.
These guys over, still on a drive or
coming up high from that, as Nathan pointed out yesterday, the ability to come to go a slightly lower course on this first leg is always an advantage, and go a little bit quicker, and the Australians may actually get over the top of everybody here. It's going to be very close.
Ready, boys? 3, 2, 1, go, boys, go.
NZ2 on the inside. You know the Aussies aren't going to give them any room, and it is NZ2 sailing team, Emirates Team New Zealand, that tuck in below. Now where do you go? And the Kiwis decide it's a good time to jibe away.
Risky move
high
there,
risk
huh?
there.
Yeah,
you know.
that's a risky move.
You know, the Kiwis tried to hold in front of Australia, and then when they jibe in that position, they're really risky at getting rolled by the Americans. But you know, luckily for the Kiwis, the Americans didn't do the best job, and they're out of jail.
But sailing through all that dirty air up there, Todd, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
So early jibes coming from New Zealand 2, USA 2, and France. USA 1 mired in the back of the pack, and Australia may have played the wrong card there because they are almost even now with New Zealand 2, Emirates Team New Zealand.
Yeah, but a much nicer angle coming out from the middle there. Look for the Swedes to be in a nice spot potentially, all the way down to the bottom of the course. The Swiss and the Australians. I wouldn't trade places with the Australians right now, Nathan.
No, they did a great job. They were a little bit higher on that start, and as you said, they were able to get their bow over all those boats in that first reach. Did a great job in the barroway, and they're in a good position. And you know, these guys will be saying, finally, we've had a good start here. Now let's just get it to the finishing line in a good position.
New Zealand 1 filing a protest, and a penalty does come on Germany. So Germany going to be penalized. That's going to cost them mightily here on leg number 2.
What do you think about the angles between the boats there, and we had that helicopter shot, Ken?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. First of all, it's interesting. This is a far more aggressive group than even in the America's Cup World Series, these boat-on-boats. But the inside, down in actually the negative current running against you, seems to always be a benefit on these downwind legs. And these guys make up for it in on the coast. Sweden, the Swiss, and here's our leaders, the Australians, look like they have a just better breeze, better angle down closer to the land.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, a bit further, boys, a bit further.
Jason Waterhouse, the skipper and helmsman for Objective Australia, in a great position right now. Here comes their jibe, and they are 1 and in, Ken, on this one. They're going to have a great position as they get to gate number 2.
I'm guessing there's been lots of frustration for these guys leading up to this moment, and this is just a huge sense of relief.
At mark number 2, it is Australia out in front. The Swiss sit in second place, and here comes Charlie Ekberg and Sweden in third.
The Kiwis were just impatient, Nathan, at that top mark, and they dropped 2 boats because of it. They could have stuck it out, I think, and just kind of struggled a little bit further and not had to jibe right back underneath the whole pack right at that weather gate.
Yeah, 100% agree with you on that one. I think they could have just held it another 30 seconds, and that would have saved them that distance that they lost there.
Portugal finding themselves fresh off their victory. Now they sit back in 5th place. That's one way to get around the mark. Just fly the hole and just lift over it.
Straight up and over.
USA 1 right behind the Portuguese yet again. As we take a look at New Zealand 1, mired in the back of the pack, so it is Sweden out by themselves. Ken, heading to the famous cone behind Alcatraz Island. Are these guys aware of the cone and how it can affect them?
Well, this race course is set up a little further to the south, so the cone doesn't really come into play much on this race course, Todd, as it does with the AC-72s. I personally love the left-hand side of the race course. I thought we saw, and it's only going to get better as the day goes on, because the ebb, the change of tide, actually happens on that left side a lot sooner than it does to the right. Look for most of the guys to start trying to get left as hard as they possibly can.
Australia leads. Sweden looks to be sitting in 3rd place. Switzerland still holding on to 2nd. Americans in boat number 2, and that's Charlie Buckingham trying to do a great job. They had a disappointing first race here today, finishing in last.
Probably just a little bit before boundary so we stay in the pressure. Stop, mate.
Yeah, ready to go?
You hear them talking there. They're heading in towards the boundary. They just want to get in there as much as they can. There's a nice puff just ahead of them there. And they're going to try and get all the way into the shore to make sure they get the most of that current that Ken's been talking about today. So you see them, they're rolling into attack. And the Swiss go with him because they know there's no breeze any further than that.
Exactly, and also they're trying to stay a little out of sequence. If they went all the way in, they'd be right dead behind the Australians again on the way back out again in kind of crummy, kind of dirty air position. So they need to just get out of there and get out into some clear air.
New Zealand too coming in there. Peter Burling, the helmsman, he decides to go just a little bit further, see if he can get some magic and get a little extra pressure there before he makes his tack.
You got big stand up.
You can see it's really shifty on the race course. You saw the Swedes for a while there on port tack were aiming at the boats ahead of them, and now they've just got a right-hander, and it's going to be a really tight closely with the Swiss.
This is on board with Sweden, excuse me, as they make the cross with Switzerland. And this is going to be very close, and it's going to be Switzerland that has to give way.
These guys have clearly been trained to do these high, slow ducks. You know, they kind of almost feather towards head to wind for a second, Todd. Slow the boats right down, and then go behind the right-of-way boat, which would be the Swedes on starboard tack in that exact position.
So it's the Australians out in front. Sweden now sitting in second place. New Zealand, 2 on their tack, moving into third.
But they're right in on this gate, and it's a strange part of the course. There's a little notch in the course right here. You see the boundary kind of sail away. Look for the Swedes to tack directly in front of the New Zealanders in this one, and there's no place they can go. They're going to have to sit in disturbed air here for a while.
You can see now in that overhead shot that there's going to be a close cross with the Kiwis and the Americans and Portugal. So, you know, every time a boat tacks on you, you're then waiting for the next boat to come and pass you.
Swedes are going fast, and that it's almost the last guy in on the left, Nathan, is going to gain. And here's the Australians doing a really short tack just to get in there.
I remember when we were doing the World Series here last year, and every time it was flooding, you'd be tacking up the shore because you get a little bit of a back eddy just around that breakwall that we can see. And the Swedes there made a big gain from just aiming at the shore at the right moment.
It's got to be a little bit difficult, Ken, for Nathan Outteridge. You know, he's an Aussie by nationality, but Sweden's his employer. So who do you like here and who are you pulling for?
Oh, it's good to see both my boys doing well, isn't it? You know, I've worked both with these teams, and the Swedes have been coming along really well. And you know, I'm looking forward to seeing this battle play out between my 2 favourite teams out there.
I don't want to say anything, but he doesn't seem to be pulling hard for the Kiwis. For some
I don't hear it. I don't hear it in his voice.
I don't feel much love there.
You guys don't know Aussies very well, do you?
So Australia takes it way deep, almost to the boundary. Now they bring the tack in, and that has allowed Charlie Ekberg and Sweden to take over the lead. So Jason Waterhouse, is that a miscalculation on his part?
Oh, you got to do what you got to do at this stage. You know, it's a really tight. Everybody's going. One thing that's clear: everybody's going the same speed here. It's really tactical. I like his position. He's going to make gains now. He's done the extra tack to get into the beach, to get into the favorable current. My guess, he's showing a little behind right now, but he's a tack ahead. Right. He might actually lay the mark. I think he's in probably reasonable shape.
Yeah, if he can lay the mark from that position, I think he's going to be in a really good spot. You know, he's probably got the left-hand breeze off the shore and a bit of better current, and you know, he's got the 2 boats right behind him, tucked behind, whereas the Swedish team are taking a risk out in the middle at the moment.
All right, Sailing 101, when you guys talk about lay to the mark, is that basically just a straight shot to the gate?
You can't go dead upwind, and that's the one thing that people don't understand. You have to angle yourself to the breeze to allow these wings or sails to actually work. And so it's the tightest angle you can get to the breeze and still actually have some speed. That's your lay line.
So it is the Aussies that comfortably come in this gate number 3 in the lead as Sweden has to make another tack. And now they will split and head in behind the Aussies as the Aussies approach gate number 3. This will be an interesting turn of events, and this may determine the race as Australia is there first, Sweden coming in second, and Switzerland now sitting in third place. Here comes NZL2 and Portugal.
Interesting, the Australians decided to do that final tack right there. They were easily laying the other side of the gate. They must really like this side downwind, and from what we saw in the first run, probably right.
So the Swedes follow the Aussies. Switzerland heads out to deeper water with New Zealand 2 under Peter Burling's helmsmanship, and sailing team with Emirates Team New Zealand in 4th.
Yeah, it'll be a really interesting call here. I think the Aussies probably realised they could continue going straight there, but instead tack directly in front of Sweden, sorry, and that means they're definitely in front now. There's no risk of splitting, but yeah, tough call. You know, it's always that position when you get to the mark, which way are we going to go here?
And interesting, Australia and Australia and Sweden have both filed protests. So we'll see how that one plays out. Meanwhile, the traffic jam continues as USA 2, France, and New Zealand 1 make the turn.
Uh-oh, Australia's have a problem with their halyard lock again. Just like the second race yesterday, they got a halyard lock problem. This is really, really bad, Nathan.
I can't believe that, can you? They've had so much bad luck yesterday, and finally today having a good race, and the Jenica halyard falls down again.
Oh, no. This is a disaster for the Australians right now, Todd. Just a disaster.
So is there a quick fix, or what can they do at this point?
Well, it depends what it is. Is it a halyard? Is it a halyard lock? There's a whole list of things that it could be.
Meanwhile, penalties coming around. USA 1 is penalized for port starboard. Germany also receives a penalty. And Australia now flying the Bravo flag, which means they have come to almost a complete stop on the course. So they went from first and they've dropped to fourth in a matter of 30 seconds.
So they're probably, Australia put a Bravo flag up. That's essentially a red flag. They're essentially protesting the race committee at this stage, saying that the boat that you let me borrow just failed. I mean, in essence, that's what got them through race number 1. The boat you let me borrow failed, therefore I should get some sort of redress. And I'm sure that they're going through the same thing right now. Just, what a shame. Yeah. Nathan, you're kind of welling up there right now. Nathan's going to cry here in the booth, Todd.
It's tough to see that happen to these boys. I know how much time and effort they've been putting into training for this event, and I spoke to a few of them yesterday, and they were disappointed and are very keen to go out and prove that they could do a good job. And here they were doing exactly what they needed to do, and then equipment fails.
So a quick reset here as they make their way down the shorefront of San Francisco. It is Switzerland that has surged out in front. Sweden sits in second, and New Zealand 2 with Peter Burling sits in third. And I've got to say at this point, I know it's going to pain Nathan to hear this, but New Zealand 2 really seems like the most consistent boat out on the water.
Well, they shook off a bad race in race 1 today. Their leaders going into the clubhouse last night, and they shook off a bad race, and here they're just sailing kind of consistent. They're not doing anything flashy. You know, here's these guys.
This is Australia again.
They're not even doing a maneuver, Nathan. Like, just something has broken. Halyard, maybe that halyard cover again. Oh, what a shame for these guys.
Here it is one more time with the lead. Nathan, you heard the sound. You saw the boys' reaction.
On the spot, boy.
What do you think? Fix it.
Yeah. Jason's just gone, all right, boys, you've got to fix that somehow for me. And, you know, they'll be doing everything they can to fix it. But these races are so short and happen so fast. And to me, it sounded like the jammer and the head of the wing that holds the code 0 up just failed on them again.
Well, that'll be in the umpire's hands when this race is complete. This is the second race today on day number 2. And after this race, we'll be at the halfway point. 4 races of 8, and we've got ourselves a nice one here coming up to gate number 4. Switzerland has the right of way as they make the turn. Which way will they go? Sweden looks like they've already made up their mind at gate number 4, and the Swiss just make a move right in front of Charlie Ekberg and really force his hand.
He almost could have gotten inside there, inside overlap with a little more aggressive play, but he probably did the right thing in a long regatta. Just take it conservative and make sure he doesn't foul out.
Exactly. You know, he probably was in 2 minds there. He was just waiting to see what Switzerland were going to do. He had the start with tack advantage. He just had to choose, am I going inside or am I going outside? And he did the right thing. He stopped and he said, I'm going to bank my second here for a little bit longer than risk getting a penalty.
So Sweden files a protest. The umpires say no penalty, sail on. It is Switzerland out in front as they head back upwind, and it is Sweden sitting in second place with New Zealand 2 opting to split the course.
Burling splitting again here. Nathan called this theme right out of the blocks in race 1, but my guess is he tacks shortly. He knows how favored that left side of the race course is. Get yourself over there and get into the fray.
Yeah, I've sailed against Pete for a number of years in the 49ers, and yeah, exactly as you said, straight into the tack. So he was just clearing his air, getting a fresh air, trying to stay away from those leaders, and those leaders, look at them, they're extending towards the shore, getting to that pressure.
Okay, go away. Stopping it, go away.
Out of the zone. Out of the zone.
You get it out.
Out of the zone.
France now filing a protest, and New Zealand 1 will get a penalty. That's Full Metal Jacket Racing. So here you hear the confusion, and the Americans will be able to skate by them.
Little tension at that mark, Todd. You know, it's funny, you rarely hear that with the pros. You know, on the actual circuit, it seems to be a much calmer. There's far fewer boat-on-boat penalties and protests.
This is France and New Zealand 1, and here it is. Here's where the yelling came in.
New Zealand 1 trying to get on the inside, and the guys ahead aren't concentrating on what they're doing. They're too busy yelling at the guy behind. Oh, incredible.
And there you see the blue light comes on, signifying the penalty. So New Zealand 1 penalty now complete, but that cost them 2 positions as USA 1 and 2 got past them. And it is still the battle royale out in front. Switzerland leading just barely over Sweden, New Zealand 2, and Peter Burling trying to get into the mix.
Nathan, the Swedes actually did a really nice job kind of keeping clear air all the way in. They could have fallen in behind in the dirt, in the bad air of the Swiss, but they actually kept a nice line all the way in.
Yeah, I think Charlie identified there that he had to go left and he needed to stay on starboard tack. So that would have been sailing what we call a high mode. They would have been powering up the wing a little bit more and really just trying to stay on the hip of Switzerland. And now look at him starting to really make a good push and a challenge towards getting back into the Swiss.
Charlie Ekberg on the left side of your screen calling it out. The Swedes now looking to taking over from Switzerland and New Zealand 2, trying to get back. And let's go back to mark number 4 and the action we saw. We got another angle of this. The French out in front, and here comes the Kiwis in boat number 1 quickly. And I mean quickly.
Yeah, they're a little slow here, kind of a tight turn, and here we come. Oh, jeez. Bang.
Gotta love it, a bit of contact out there, good to see.
Just rode up on the back of the French boat, little piggyback action.
Good to see, says the guy who doesn't have to write the check for the fix tonight.
So back to live racing action, leg 5 of 7. This is the second race and final race of today. And it is Sweden and Charlie Ekberg out in front. But here comes the Kiwis and the Swiss.
So the Kiwis obviously have done the same thing we saw before. They've gotten out of sequence. So that one little tack back at the leeward mark probably lost them a little ground first. But now all of a sudden they're going to be out of sequence with the 2 guys in front of them. They're going to be able to sail a little bit fresher race course, a little less disturbed air. But, you know, Todd, one thing that's clear to me, Charlie Ekberg is using he's so much more poised here than we saw in Naples. When he sailed for Artemis in Naples, he's really sailing the boat fast, I think.
And they have some pretty decent sailors in that Artemis program, I've heard.
The 72 skipper was marginal at times, but
he also liked to hit boats as well.
Yeah.
There's Charlie Ekberg on the left side of your screen, the number 1 on his helmet. Charlie speaks great English. He's opting here not to reveal any secrets to our viewing audience, so he's going straight Swedish.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't get himself back into the left side of the race course. Once you can get to that left side lay line, you typically want to get over there and start playing that favorable current.
So as they approach gate number 5, Sweden on top, Switzerland in second, New Zealand 2 in third.
Yeah, he's looking like he's just going to continue. Looks like maybe he's not going to hit the boundary before the lay line, or at least he's trying to risk that. And looks like there's really good pressure just above him, so I guess that's what's enticing him to stay offshore. You see there the Swiss attack, and he goes and follows, so he obviously thinks he can't make the lay line now, and he's just going to keep the race nice and close.
If you're going to do 2 tacks, you would have thought he would have done it earlier in the leg to play up coming from the left at the top of the mark. But he might have a large enough lead to be able to kind of squander a little bit of
What do you think, though?
Stage.
Can he make it to gate 5 without another maneuver?
Doesn't look like it. It looks like he's going to have to tack a couple more times. But with a reasonable little, remember, they only have one more, two more legs to go, right?
Short leg to the shore, and after they make the turn at gate number 5, it's halfway down the course and the big right-hander to the finish line.
And typically when you're coming here last time round, you know if you can go right-hand mark looking at the top upwind, it means only 1 jibe for the downwind. So he probably saw Switzerland tack and goes, well, I can do that maneuver as well. Whereas you can see Team New Zealand seem to have ducked both boats, and they're probably going to go left mark at the top here.
That's a good call.
So
Save
New
one
Zealand
job.
2 and Peter Burling, they go all the way down to the lay line. Sweden left alone in the middle of the course right now, and Switzerland trying to set themselves up for a perfect gate marking, but it will be another tack for Sweden.
Swiss and the Kiwis are going to be very close here for second place. Peter Burling sailed this leg very, very well, I think. He kept himself out of sequence. Again, he's coming in late.
So at gate number 5, it is Sweden that now has the lead. They've got 2 more legs to go, and the victory will be theirs. But here comes New Zealand 2 and the Swiss, and it'll be interesting to decide which way they decide to go as they make the turn back towards San Francisco.
Last second duck by the Swiss. We saw their code 0, though, unfurling a tiny little bit, a little flutter there. Will it unroll okay? That's a big question mark for them right now, but they have one less jibe to do on this last leg.
You can hear the boys on the Kiwi boat very happy. Blair took the tactician. They're going, real nice, set there, boys, and they're going to get a nice little puff off the shore here and then shape up to get a jibe. And I think they'll be looking good against Switzerland.
All the way down here, Pete.
Swiss have had a big day here.
Yeah, no question about it. They have been in the mix, but it is Sweden right now that has about a 100-meter lead on New Zealand 2 as the Swiss continue to follow Charlie Ekberg in Sweden.
Tight battle here between these two boats trying to get round the top mark.
Come on, Saul. Inside of him or outside? In. No, out. Yep, in. Deploy, we're ready.
In call.
Wow. In, no out, no in.
How's the decision-making process?
I'm all for some great action here, boys, but that's leaving it to the last second.
That was fantastic. Being on board, these onboard mics are tremendous in those situations.
One and in.
That'll be something they'll want to talk about when they get back to shore. Right now, back to the start of the course, at the top of the course, excuse me, Sweden out in front. Charlie Ekberg doing a great job with his crew.
Looking like they're just a little bit above the ley line here. These boats can only sail one angle, and he's going to have to do a big soak down to this marquee, or maybe 2 quick jibes.
Not perfect jibe. All of a sudden, we got a little bit of a serious grouping at the mark. The Swiss get around. They can't go inside Sweden at this stage. They have to wait. By the Swedes going so slow, it kind of created a log jam right there at the very last second.
And maybe the biggest beneficiary of that log jam is New Zealand 2. It's Sweden out in front at the last gate. Switzerland sits in second place, New Zealand 2 in third. And now we've got ourselves a good old-fashioned drag race to the finish line.
And they're trying a little desperation move. They're keeping up their code 0 to get to a different angle, but typically this doesn't work. They're just trying something different to try to get around these front 2 guys.
Exactly, and then it seems like the mark is a lot lower than normal. Normally the reach angle is about 90 degrees to the wind, and here it seems much lower, and looking at the overhead shots, not really making a gain here for Pete Burling.
Great work by Charlie Ekberg and Sweden. So we will have our 4th different winner in 4 races. The Swedish Youth Challenge claimed race number 4. Switzerland grabs second place, and New Zealand 2 and Peter Burling didn't get the win, but gentlemen, it is all about consistency, and they certainly have been that.
Anybody who enjoys sport has to smile when you see the enthusiasm coming across the finish line. That's just great to see.
Oh, yeah.
As the rest of the fleet comes in 4th place, France, and USA 1. Michael Menninger, after a great performance in the first race of the day, this is respectable. We talked about being consistently in the top 5, and that's what USA American Youth Sailing Force boat number 1 has done.
Well, that was them at the top mark. They go in, go out, go in, go out, and they made the right call, and I think they passed 3 boats right there at the end.
Certainly got on the inside of the Portuguese, made them a little nervous, and Solomon Crevens and Michael Menninger having a nice conversation. They'll say, boys, we need to work on that just a little bit, maybe a little pre-notice. New Zealand 1, that's the Full Metal Jacket racing boat, comes across. USA 2, a better performance here. They had been mired in the back, and this time they will move up the ladder board to 7th place. Portuguese had the win in race number 1 today, and they'll have to settle for an 8th on the day in race number 2.
But you can't help but feel for the Australians. This is, what a sad moment. They were sailing great. They had a nice little lead. Honestly, there was nothing going wrong in their playbook, and all of a sudden the code zero again falls into the drink, and what a shame. Just
Leg
really
4
bad.
of 7. It really was the telling spot for the Australians, and I'm sure the officials will have some redress issues to talk about, because as Ken pointed out, for the second day they have had a failed piece of equipment. We now take it down to the Swedish Youth Challenge. Charlie Ekberg is the helmsman. Charlie, congratulations. You guys get the win on race number 4, and it was very close, but some fantastic sailing by you and your crew. Now, we don't understand any of the Swedish. Was that for the benefit of the Swedish fans, or was that to keep the secrets on the boat?
Kommer runda upp här killar. Lägger upp den.
Charlie Ekberg, can you hear us back on shore?
Lägger upp den.
He's keeping all the secrets to himself right now, Todd.
He's got his hands full right now as Charlie and his crew try to get ready to work their way back in. So racing is done for the day as Australia comes around mark number 6. And guys, we talked about this, and Nathan, I know, see your fellow countrymates really struggle out there. Nothing of their doing. It was just a malfunction.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating for these boys, and you know, I guess they're going to have some sense of humor about this at some point, but right now it's pretty hard to have a smile on your face when you know, they've done everything right this race so far, just to have that fall down and have a go at the guy just hanging out, holding onto the kite.
What a shame. It is such an awful feeling, Todd. There's nothing you can do. But remember, the jury determined in the 2 races yesterday that they had problems. The jury determined in race number 1 there was an actual failure. In race number 2, the code zero fell in the water just like it did now, but they determined that it was actually a crew error which caused it. So these guys, it's not cut and dry. They're going to have to go into the room, and they're going to have to figure out, they're going to have to convince the jury that it was a failure of the boat and not a failure of the team.
The boys are having some good times out there. I've never known Australia not to have a good time, but I hear some laughing out there, Nathan. They're making a good run of it.
Well, that's good to hear. You know, these guys are disappointed, but at least they're having a lot of fun. You know, they know they've only got 2 more days left now of sailing these boats, and these are some of the coolest boats that anyone's ever going to get to sail on. So they'll be reminding each other of that all the way around the race course.
So all 10 come home safely in race number 4, day 2 of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup. And what a performance by Charlie Ekberg and his squad as they get the victory. As we take a look at the results for race number 4, the Swedish Youth Challenge gets the win, 5 seconds ahead of Team Tilt Switzerland. New Zealand Racing Emirates Team New Zealand grabs 3rd, 13 seconds behind. And the French come in for 4th. American Youth Sailing Force, American boat number 1, grabs 5th, and it's Full Metal Jacket. The Kiwis, USA 45 gets 7th, and then the Portuguese drop to 8th. All in Racing, the Germans go 9th, and Australia limp across the line in 10th, but having a great time. We've got ourselves a log jam up at the top for the overall. After 4 races, it is Emirates Team New Zealand, Peter Burling, and Michael Menninger, American Youth Sailing Force, all knotted up at 28 points, and it's awfully close with the Swiss sitting in 3rd. And then look at this, 3 teams with 26 points, with the Swedes, the Kiwis, and the rest of the crew coming through as well. Well, let's take a look at this one more time, guys. It all starts with the start, and the Portuguese tried this maneuver again, but just not enough room, and that left the door wide open for the Aussies.
Aussies pulled the trigger, time and distance, terrific time and distance, just nailed it. It's great to see. They've been struggling. They came off the middle of the line, which is kind of surprising. Nathan and I were both like in one end or the other, but they came off the middle of the line just fast on this first reach. Just got over the top of the New Zealanders.
At mark number 1, it is a very classic hole shot for the Aussies, and they decided to split the course with New Zealand heading to the left.
The Kiwis did a great job here of deploying really early, so they got wind forward of the Aussies here, but at this moment here, Ken and I both looked at each other and sort of thought, I'm not sure if we'd do that, and it didn't work out too bad for him, but the Aussies definitely stepped away from that in that moment.
Good opportunity for them as they rolled over the top of the Americans. No harm, no foul as we move down the course to mark number 2. Australia still in the lead, but here come the Swiss, and Charlie Ekberg now in third, making a great maneuver.
Yeah, he did a little bit of a split here, just went a little further, just got out of sequence, got away from that bad air, and set himself up for later in the race.
On leg number 3, it was Sweden and Charlie Ekberg putting the pressure on the Australians. Switzerland starting to make their move. They would move into third place, but at this point, Australia looked to be in a great spot, and then we move to the 4th leg, and here's where the problems happen.
Nathan, we'll let you call this one.
Yeah, it's just frustrating to watch. I think everyone who's watching this race just feels for these boys. They're doing such a good job, and then to have it all go bad on them is well, you can hear it there from the boys on course.
Something broke. I mean, it appears that something broke, and not just maybe a line stripping or anything. It'll be interesting to find out what it actually was.
And then we had a little more action at mark number 4 at this turning as France has the lead at the bottom of your screen and New Zealand won. Getting a little too froggy, looking for a little piggyback.
Bang. Yeah, the French got a little slow there, and honestly, I'm not sure the New Zealanders had any place to go.
Gotta love the yelling from the boys, and that happens so often on these boats. You can see them doing a really slow turn, and all of a sudden, where are you going to go? And they end up leeward bow in between the sterns of the boat, and looks like there was no damage. So, you know, the Kiwis did a great job of minimizing a bad situation there.
And at the finish, it would be Sweden, the Swedish Youth Challenge. Charlie Ekberg getting the job done as they pick up the victory. Great action all day. Day number 2 of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup with Ken Reed, Nathan Atteridge. I'm Todd Harrison. The weather cooperated. Guys, the wind was a little lighter at the first race, but the second race it picked up. And Charlie Ekberg really showing his America's Cup World Series stripes there, Nathan, did a fantastic job.
Yeah, he did a great job. And what I was really impressed about was he didn't have the best start. But he went a little further after Mark 1 and just made a really big gain on that first downwind to get into a position where he could take the lead.
So as the wind picks up at the close of day number 2, Ken, we look to day number 3 as we make the turn past the halfway point. Who do you like in this competition and why?
Well, it's consistency, consistency, consistency. It's that the Americans and the Force have shown that they can climb back from the back of the pack just to salvage a 5th. That 5th in the last race was like winning the race. That they gained 3 or 4 boats right at the last minute. Those are the little things when you look back at a regatta that make the biggest difference.
And meanwhile, the Australians having their issues for the 2nd day in a row as the Jenniker, the Code Zero, snapping free. We heard it. It just doesn't sound right, and this was the result. And this is really the 3rd time they've had this situation, Ken.
It'll just be interesting to see if it was a failure on board the boat. You hear bang, there's the big bang. You would think it is, but like with the 2nd race yesterday, it may not be that simple. They may have made a crew error to somehow trip the lock open, and all of a sudden that thing falls in the water.
We saw the Aussies bringing it home and having a good laugh as they were just plowing through the bay and high speeds.
Pre-training. Because you guys all did a great job maintaining it, and now.
But they said they've never broken anything pre-regatta, and what that tells you right there is they think something broke.
Well, maybe the most critical point in this race, and this is certainly something Australia would like to maybe protest because they should have been in the mix, was right here. Charlie Ekberg has to make a jibe right before the gate, and this causes Switzerland, Nathan, to just slam on the brakes.
Yeah, well, they can come in there, and they were inside the zone, so they could basically come and stop, and that forces Switzerland to avoid them, and Switzerland did a great job of not running into the back of them. You see them do a big wiggle with the tiller there when that happens, and it'd be really good to see here the onboard footage, how much they stop and what Switzerland have to do to avoid them.
You know, something I learned yesterday, Todd, was Nathan talking about, or just reinforced, was ley lines. And these guys missed the ley line. Here it is, the leader of the race. They missed the ley line coming in. It almost cost them. It got them very slow at the end of the race and almost cost them. So you can see a slight inexperience with all these guys, not quite nailing the ley lines the way the pros were doing it back in the America's Cup World Series.
Well, there's the beautiful view of the San Francisco Bay, and in just less than a week, we will have the 34th America's Cup taking place when the boys of the Red Bull Youth America's Cup wrap things up on Wednesday. 2 more days of racing, 2 races a day. And at the halfway point, we've got ourselves a great match going on. The Americans look to be very strong, but it is the consistent sailing of Peter Burling and New Zealand sailing team with Emirates Team New Zealand doing the best job right now. His crew is Jason Saunders, Andy Maloney, Guy and Dean, John O'Spurtle, and Blair Tuke, the tactician, doing a great job. Race 2 goes into the books, but I think race number 1 might have been the biggest surprise, Ken and Nathan, as Portugal did the old slingshot maneuver, wait in the back, and then all of a sudden just timing it distance perfectly, hit the line at full speed.
Well, we love the fact that they stayed away from the fray, stayed out of the fray, got themselves in a nice clear lane position, timed it well, didn't allow Germany to get into their hole, and just had momentum. They just had pace at the start, and then, of course, helped out by how many boats were over early and how many boats were fouled or fouled out and had to take a penalty right away.
4 boats took penalties right off the line, and they're the ones that were closest to Portugal as they made their way to mark number 1. So the Portuguese get the whole shot, something we haven't seen a lot, and hold the lead for the entire race, although USA won and Michael Meninger made it very close.
2 great roundings, 2 great unfurls there. The boat handling with all these teams has been really spectacular.
Nathan, you've had a chance to sail the AC-45s as well in the America's Cup World Series. Are you impressed how well these young guys have done getting up to speed with these boats?
Yeah, it's extremely impressive. These boats aren't easy to sail, and today was a little bit lighter than the last few days, but the fact that we're only seeing, the only boat handling errors we're really seeing are the bad furls. You know, when they come around the top mark, we've seen a few shake out, but I don't think we saw any issues like that in race 2. So they've learned from the race 1 today to race 2, and you know, I think these guys, you know, owe a lot to the guys who've been helping them, their coaches and that. And, you know, they've been obviously watching what we've been doing on the World Series the last few years and saying, hey, we can do that as well.
Well, a fantastic day of racing comes to a conclusion here at the Red Bull Youth America's Cup on a Labor Day weekend here in San Francisco, California. Mother Nature providing some fantastic weather, and for the fans that have a day off from work, you walk down to the beach and you watch the best young sailors go at it. Ken, these really are the stars of tomorrow, and there's a good chance we'll see a lot of these guys on boats as we make our way towards the 35th America's Cup.
The best young sailors, this is clearly a pathway. That's what you kept hearing when you talked to them before the regatta. They considered this a pathway to showcase their skills, to do things like around the world races, America's Cups, big professional events. So good on them. It's just a great enthusiasm to see the whole event itself.
So we'll make the turn for the halfway point. 2 more days of racing here in San Francisco, but right now it is New Zealand, Emirates Team New Zealand's youth program with Peter Burling on top on the overall. But again, 4 more races to take place. On behalf of Ken Reed and Nathan Outeridge, on loan to us from Artemis Racing, I'm Todd Harris saying so long from now from San Francisco. We'll see you back here again tomorrow.